I mean, what influenced us from the inside was the spirit of the bands, the ones that really freed your brain into saying, oh, this is entertainment and it's meant to be wild and super fun. And bands like, the Birthday Party and the Butthole Surfers. And that made me realize, oh, it's our duty to make this very entertaining as much as we can.
Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
I am Kevin Rutmanis. Do you need more info than that?
Sure. Would you like to tell people maybe some of the bands that you've played in over the years?
I am Kevin Rutmanis, and I have played bass, electric bass. My first band was the Cows, and then I did this Gaswar thing, which is what we're talking about tonight. And then I was in the Melvins for, I think, 11 years or something. And then I was in a band called Tomahawk for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. And then I had a band called Hepatitis. And I have a band called Lords and Lady Kevin. Oh, and I did a record called Done with Rutmanis. That's with Trevor Dunn, who now plays bass in Tomahawk. And, he's obviously probably people know him from Mr. Bungle and many different jazz organizations. And I think that's everything. Oh, and this Gaswar record, which we started way back when and then finished up now.
So throughout your career, from the Cows to the Melvins to Tomahawk, would you say that you worked in any particular genre?
No, I don't ever know how to label it, to be honest. I mean, people always call it noise or I don't know. Yeah, I just rock is about as far as I can get with it as far as a genre. Do you have any suggestions?
I don't. I know the cows were associated with noise rock. I actually spoke to your buddy Hazelmeyer not that long ago,
Uh-huh.
and he basically said that noise rock is what fit under the logo,
Yeah.
and if he had more space, he would have used a different term.
Yeah, I mean none of us ever used that. I mean, you know how it is with rock or with any music genre. I don't even know who comes up with the label, but I guess you have to call yourself something.
Yeah.
And I guess this Gaswar stuff is the most like the genre of cows, whatever it is. I don't know. I shouldn't even say that. Anyway, it's closer to that sort of thing than say Melvins or certainly Tomahawk.
I'm curious, why the bass? What led you to play the bass?
I don't really remember. I think I just liked it. And yeah, I'm guessing because it was so long ago, I didn't want to work as hard as a drummer has to work to figure out how to do it. And then guitar playing is just kind of it's kind of a cliche. And I remember right when I started playing the bass thinking, I'm not going to do what the poor bass. I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to bring the bass to a different place than it's been before. And so pretty early on, I started playing the slide, which gave me that very feature.
Was there any particular band or any particular album that made you want to play music, or that you heard and you said, I can do this too?
No, I mean, I've always listened to really a lot of music. And, I played piano when I was tiny, like 5 or 6 for a few years. And I played cello like in junior high school. And I think I took some more piano. But after that, I just listened to a lot of music. And my brother lived there with me. And at the time, the local band, we were excited about all the new music at that point, which was, now they're the classics, but then it was like Birthday Party and the Minutemen and the Butthole Surfers and Scratch Acid and just everyone that was around then, the Dead Kennedys. And we were like, there was nothing to our ears, what then would have been modern sounding happening in Minneapolis. And it all seemed kind of precious. And me and my brother were very excited by all this music, so we both just started to learn to play together. It was just sort of an overall inspiration of this new kind of music that was coming into being.
Were you familiar with Husker Du and the other hardcore bands that were coming out of Minneapolis at the time?
Uh, like who? Well, I mean, we knew about Husker Du and early on, believe it, in the early days of Soul Asylum, before they had a record label, they were ferocious and really inspirational. And so they were definitely some kind of, I know that's a funny band to name as an inspiration because none of the stuff that people have heard or like those early days were, but they were inspirational. And there was a lot of little hardcore bands, but we didn't really follow them. Or, I went to a lot of hardcore shows, but it was always like 5 bands, and I couldn't even honestly tell you most of the time which bands they were.
I mean, when you guys started the Cows, what was your? Because obviously there's no template for noise rock because it didn't exist yet.
Right.
What were your intentions? What led you down the path to the music that you eventually made?
I have no idea. That's just how it came out. Me and my brother first started, and it's funny because it's a small town, and at that time I lived with Mark Perlman, who ended up being in the Jayhawks, but they weren't a band yet. And he's a very kind, sweet person. And he had a bass and he would let me use it. And he was really enthusiastic. He was like, oh, you're such an interesting, strange bass. That's great. But I had no money, and he went in on a bass with me. We each put in $200 for it's this, in the 80s, it was, I mean, they still make them, but back then it's a company called G&L, and they had this one bass that we didn't know, but when he bought it and I tried it in the second we plugged it in, me and my brother were like, oh, because it's a really aggressive sounding bass. So really it was kind of the sound of the instrument that steered me. And then once I thought to try a distortion pedal, then, everything wrote itself as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
We just went. And he and I and Thor, the guitar player, and it wasn't Shannon right away, but then once Shannon joined, our singer, I mean, we practiced 3, 4 times a week for 5, 6 hours, just because it was so fun. And what I didn't realize till much later is that's a lot of rehearsing, and we got real good. We didn't even know how good we were.
Yeah.
But we all really loved super noisy music, except for Thor, who was strictly like kind of a blues guy and loved like Neil Young. I mean, I liked those too, but he wasn't really interested in the same modern kind of music that we were, which I think was cool and kind of, because it's funny because his playing sounds so abstract, but he was probably had the most conservative tastes. And I mean, we loved all that flipper and all that junk that was noisy. So it wasn't hard for our ears to go somewhere atonal and be happy.
When I think of the bands associated with AmRep, not just the noise and the skronk element, but there's something rhythmically that you guys do which is very different from the standard 4/4 punk.
I think you're right.
Yeah, where did those rhythms come from? What were you guys listening to?
Again, I think that was internal. I could play in a dark, because me and my brother played before the band really got going. We played together all the time, just the two of us. And I think believe it or not, I think some of those rhythms are just in you, like in your family, because we would turn corners and change with the lights off and follow each other, no problem. And I've noticed in retrospect, it's a lot of threes, dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that till later. I was like, we're not even playing rock. I think I heard through the rumor mill that Albini complained that what are they just playing waltzes or something? But I didn't notice till later. It's like, oh yeah, and then there's some strange things that happened that we weren't really aware of. It just happened that way. That's just how we were. I mean, we were musical and played and listened to a lot of music, but we never discussed, oh, we should avoid 4/4 time. We didn't know we were doing that.
Right.
I mean, if I'd have stopped and thought about it, we didn't notice, is what I should say.
Yeah.
And then Tony, when he became our drummer, his dad was like a lifelong jazz musician who had toured and all this stuff. He was a really sweet guy too. And he said, he noticed. He said, you guys play some really wild rhythms and changes and stuff. That was flattering to hear, but we didn't know we didn't notice we were doing that.
Yeah. I mean, from the outside, like, sometimes those rhythms get described as jazzy. There's even like kind of a funk element to it.
Yeah, I think that's true. Again, I don't think it was on purpose.
Okay.
I mean, I know what you mean. I've heard that from people. It was always very flattering. I was like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Looking back too, I mean, I think it's pretty bluesy too.
Yeah.
But that might be just how me and my brother grew up listening. I mean, our parents played blues and like folk blues. And so we heard it a lot. And I learned to play guitar, like the most rudimentary, simple guitar, playing to the most rudimentary, simple blues records, just because it was easy. And I think that's just naturally the direction it went. And I remember being super, super flattered. I doubt if she'd remember this, but way back in the earliest days, I don't even know if Babes in Toyland were a band yet, but we were friends with Cat and those guys. And I think it's that funk element you're talking about that we didn't know we were doing. But I remember after the show, Cat going, the cows make me want to go, And that was very flattering. I took that as a big compliment. And I think that's what she was referring to. It has that little bit of whatever it is. It really was not influenced from the outside. If it was, we didn't realize it. I mean, what influenced us from the inside was the spirit of the bands. The ones that really freed your brain into saying, oh, this is entertainment and it's meant to be wild and super fun. And bands like, the Birthday Party and the Butthole Surfers. And that made me realize, oh, it's our duty to make this very entertaining as much as we can.
How would you describe that spirit? What would you say unites Cows with bands like Flipper, Minutemen, Butthole Surfers, some of the other bands that you mentioned?
Well, we saw the Minutemen, my brother and I. We were just floored. Like, I remember we were looking around the audience thinking, why aren't these guys as unbelievably impressed as we are? But the spirit of the other bands, like as far as the live spirit and the musical spirit, is kind of like vaudeville in my mind, in a good way. Like, I really love that chaotic. It's funny, but it's scary. I don't know. It's not concrete. We never talked about it, but we knew about it, We knew what we liked. Like, Minutemen weren't so chaotic and scary, but the music was very It was their music. It wasn't somebody else's. They don't remind me of anyone else. And those bands are all kind of like that. They're kind of like archetypes, almost unintentional archetypes. And that was when it works. That's what I think I'm able to pull off. Hopefully, I can't think my way through it, but hopefully I can get there sometimes.
So one of the bands that were in the area was Hammerhead.
Yeah.
How did you meet the Hammerhead guys?
Well, we had already been going for a few years, and they moved from a small, weird town way out in the middle of nowhere by North Dakota, Fargo, and what's it connected to, the Minnesota town? Moorhead. And so they did a show with us, actually. And they were, I think, already fans of the Cows, and they were new, so we hadn't heard of them. And I've said this in other reviews. It's the only time I was down in the basement, like in the band room while they were playing. I wasn't watching them. It's the only time I can remember where Shannon came and found me and said, "You should probably come upstairs and watch this bass player." Because Paul was just so good and so strong and so unlike any other bass playing I'd ever seen or heard. And you're just like going, oh yeah, that's cool. So it just went from there. Mutual admiration. We went on tours together and got to know each other real well. Spent a lot of time together.
And eventually, at a certain point, both Cows and Hammerhead were on hiatus, and you ended up jamming with Paul and Jeff.
Yeah,
Was it very natural?
it sure was. I mean, I don't even know if we were on hiatus so much. You know, it was just you don't tour. We didn't tour 12 hour months a year, so yeah, I guess that's hiatus. But yeah, I mean, we hung out all the time, and we all shared music, and it was very organic and very instant. I don't even remember what started the ball rolling, but they lived in a house that there was a. I think they lived there, yeah. And there was a basement. This is in Minnesota, where it's 40 below zero, and they had a basement, carpeted downstairs basement, like a room that you could rehearse in without bothering anyone. And it's freezing cold, and out we go, and we just go down there and play. And those songs, like, just because knew each other so well, and we didn't have to learn to play together. We could just do it. And those songs were written very quickly and with no planning. It was just like, oh, how about this? Yeah, cool. Let's do this. All right. It was quick and easy and really fun.
Did you have it in mind that you wanted to write some songs when you started jamming with them?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't, it was.
I should mention that this was more than, this was almost 25 years ago.
Yeah.
When you guys started recording these songs.
Yeah, these were recorded like sometime in the late 90s. And then we recorded them at this guy, Mike Wistey's house. Like, I think he had the amps in the basement and ran big long cables. And I think I remember playing up in the kitchen. Like, it was very grassroots meat and potatoes. But they came out good, but there was no vocals on them, no overdubs, nothing. And then every few years, one of us would say, oh, we should finish that. Yeah. And then nothing. And then a few years ago, it just came up on my shuffle, on my computer, and I was like, God, I really do like this stuff a lot. I heard it, and I think I just said, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and put vocals on this if you guys are down, and they're like, yeah, go for it, whatever. And I did it, and then Paul came up with a couple that he had done vocals on in the past that were just great, so we used those too, and I think I added a little bit of guitar and some weird noises here and there. And then I have a friend here in LA who's a great mixer, and he took, we already had the basic tracks. We didn't have those separate tracks, but he was able to take those and then the new tracks and mix it all together. And it came out really well. He did a great job. It came out good. And I just kept sending to those guys going, is this okay? And they're like, yeah, it's great. Don't worry about it. So we bookended a big empty range of time.
Right. I should mention that this project is called Gaswar.
Mm-hmm.
So are you and Paul both playing bass or taking turns with bass and guitar?
No, he's playing guitar.
Okay, I see.
He's a great guitar player and very unusual, unique, strange tunings. I think we both use strange tunings, or just not the usual tuning standard. He's a great guitar player, so that was no problem. Great sense of melody. And Jeff, shit. I listen to that, and the stuff we did with him is as good as any of the Jeff stuff I've heard. They're great players, so for me, it was nothing but pleasure. I would stack those two guys up against any musicians in the world. I mean, they're world-class players. They're really good, above average.
I mean, other than just liking the songs, was there any other reason you wanted to resurrect and release the Gaswar sessions?
No, that was it. I just didn't want those songs to get lost. I thought I hadn't heard him for a while. I heard him, and I always knew I liked him, but after not hearing him for a second, they just sounded just as authentic and fresh as ever. And I was like, and my wife hadn't heard it, and she heard it. She's a big music fan, and she was also just like, you need to see if you can finish this stuff. So we did. It was easy to finish. There was no problem.
How would you compare Gaswar to the music you made with Cows?
To my ears, it sounds exactly like what it is, a cross between Hammerhead and the Cows. I mean, the biggest difference to my mind in those two bands is just the choice in melodies and rhythms. Like you mentioned, that weird Cows rhythm thing, whatever it is. And then they have their own very distinct style in rhythms and in melodies. And it those two things came together. That's the biggest thing, I think. And we were appreciative of each other's proficiency and totally trusted each other. So there was no second guessing parts, nothing. There was no arguing, zero. Just do this. Oh, cool. Do this. Nah. Okay, don't. There was no ego. It was just everyone really liked music. We liked the same music, and we liked each other's playing. It really was an easy, organic, and efficient. And then we did a couple live shows, and people really liked it. We're like, oh, good, because you never know if you're hypnotizing yourself. Maybe it's not as good as you think, but it sure seemed good. And then when we played it, people really liked it.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, it'd been a while. I heard it again. I was like, man, it would be a real shame if this never came out. I thought that really was the only motivation. I wanted people to hear it because I thought it was good.
You mentioned you recorded this in Mike Wisty's basement.
Yeah.
What were the sessions like? Did he have like an 8-track or something like that?
I don't know what he used. I couldn't even tell you. Sessions was us one time. We knew those songs.
You recorded everything live?
Yeah, we knew those songs inside and out, so it was no problem. Just, oh, you mean all three at once? God, I don't even remember. I couldn't even tell you. I bet Paul would remember, or Jeff. But I don't think we went in separately. I think we just knocked them out. Like in my memory was like 1 or 2 takes, and that was it. It's boom, boom, boom.
Do you prefer recording live?
Not at all.
You don't?
Not meaning I don't like it, meaning I'll do any styles. I like recording. I like a lot, and I like doing it a lot of different ways. I haven't recorded live in a long time because it's not always the most efficient way, and it doesn't always get you the sounds you want, but not because I'm against it.
I mean, most engineers will will discourage bands from recording live, but I know a few bands who want to do it. They just, it is what it is.
Depends on who you're working with too. The guy we're working with, he calls himself Pseudo Beast. Is that word pseudo or pseudo? It's pseudo, right?
I think it's pseudo, yeah.
Yeah. I love working with him. He's just like the Hammerhead guys or people I've worked with that it went well with. Is he'll do anything. He's not opposed. If I were to say, let's do this all live, he'd go, all right, let's do that. We don't need to do this live. Okay. I mean, I've recorded a good chunk of my vocals on the phone. He's never once said one thing about it. You send it over and he makes it sound good. And I love people like that are willing to do. Like I did a record with, you know who Trevor Dunn is, right?
Mr. Bungle?
Yeah. He and I did a record together, and we just did it by email, no pressure. There were no rules, and it went great. I love people like that. Just send it back and forth. What do you think of this? I think it's great. I wanted to do this. Do you mind? Not at all. Do whatever you think. And I love working open-ended like that. There's very little controlling going on. No egos. Just the goal is to make something that we think is good. And it works very well in my life. That's not for everyone, but it works for me. So I would do live recording if I thought there was some advantage to it, or I was trying to save time or something. But I don't generally anymore. Mostly, I don't think I have in my whole life. Now that when I think about it, I mean, the Cows didn't do it. But I think that Gaswar might have been live, but we wouldn't have been in the same room. But, we could play together, no problem. So we probably just knocked it out. The Melvins were like that. You could just do it,
So the sessions will be released as Girl Vanishes on Way to Jive Club.
Yeah.
And Rock is Hell will be handling the physical release, and you guys will be handling digital release through your own Bandcamp page. We'll
be handling the physical release in the United States also.
I see, okay.
Rock is Hell is doing the world just because shipping it's too much. I can't, with a clear mind, ask someone in Germany with a clear conscience, say, well, it's $40 shipping. Yeah.
Right.
So we do US, and then he does the rest of the world. And that's how we've done many records with him, and it's worked out great every time.
So you mentioned adding vocals after the fact, and
Yeah.
I think you said Paul also added some stuff.
Yeah. Originally, when we did those songs, he sang all of them, but I think I didn't even realize we had two songs with vocals on them. He dug them up. I was like, oh yeah, yeah, and they're great. He's a great singer, and so and I said, well, I'll do these others just to do something, and they were both like, yeah, yeah, just go ahead, and just do what you think. And I think there's a couple I changed after a few takes, and there was one where he had sang, but then I had sung it too, but then we found his vocals and they were much better. But we put mine in just in one section of the song or something like that. But most of the vocals were done after the fact, and then I added some weird noises and a little bit of guitar and stuff like that.
Do you have your own home recording setup?
You could call it that, yeah. I mean, really, I use my phone a lot, and I have a little direct thing that goes into my computer. I mean, these days the cheapest freeware gear sounds great.
Yeah.
It's not hard to make good sounding music for little to no money. And when I did a Hepatitis and the Done with Rutmanis records, I did those at home, edited, and then sent them to Pseudo Beast to mix. It's a new way to work for me, and I love it for arranging, just chopping up songs and tried different arrangements. It really worked well for us. Like, we didn't go to the studio for either of those records.
Pseudo Beast handled the mixing and the mastering of the album.
Yep. Oh, not the mastering, no. Rock as Hell has a guy, and I'm so sorry I don't remember his name. He might be in Germany. I feel bad I don't remember his name, but he does a great job. He masters. The Pseudo Beast mixes and EQs and compresses and gets it all ready to be mastered, basically. He did such a good job because he was working with stuff. He didn't get individual tracks on very much of the stuff, some of it. So he had to work with what we sent him, and he made them sound great. Really good. He knows what he's doing. I'm trying to think of a record you would have heard that he did. I think he did The Last Dead Cross. That's the last thing I can think of.
Okay. So with the album coming out soon, and it'll be out by the time people hear this episode, do you, Jeff and Paul, have anything planned for Gaswar? Or is this it?
We don't, nothing concrete, but we all want to. It's just making it work. Those two, well, they were both in Minneapolis. Paul just moved to Portland, but it's not hard for us to get around. There is I can't remember what he calls it. Conan Neutron does a 2 or 3 day festival in Minneapolis, like in May, that we're trying to see if we can get to that. That would be good. But no, there's no concrete plans, but something will happen, most certainly.
Okay, great. So by the time people hear this episode, Gaswar's Girl Vanishes on Way to Jive Club will be out.
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Please tell people how they can order the album.
Well, I'm glad you asked. If you're in the U.S., you can we're doing pre-orders starting. It'll already have happened before this broadcast. We're doing pre-orders tonight or tomorrow. And the U.S., if you order the record in the U.S., you go to Gina Squaws, her Facebook. We do everything through that. She does it hands-on. There's not very many copies in the U.S., so it's not overwhelming, but it is competitive to get them as a result. So you just get it through her. We're doing and if you're in the world and not in the U.S., you get it through Big Cartel for Rock as Hell, and they're selling their copies there.
Squaws is spelled SKWOZ.
SKWOZ, yes. And there's also a Bandcamp for Gaswar for digital sales. It's Gaswar at Bandcamp.
Gaswar.bandcamp.com, I think.
Yeah, and there's one song up right now just for free, just so people hear what they're getting into. I'm super happy with this record. I mean, I suppose everyone says that, but some records you think, oh, I wish I could have done this or that differently, but this one I think it's exactly what it should be. Great.
I mean, it's been in gestation for a long time.
Yeah, it sure has.
How does it feel to finally have it come out?
Yeah, I'm so happy it's coming out. It's really good. Were you able to get to hear it?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, good. I was going to say.
Our mutual friend Dan sent me a promo. Yeah, it's great. People will be able to hear it on this episode.
Good.
And yeah, hopefully everyone will check it out. You mentioned something about the physical releases, that there's two different... you're handling physical releases in the U.S. and Rock as Hell is handling it in Europe.
Right.
Can you tell me what the actual releases will be? The vinyl or whatnot?
Most of them are clear vinyl with art by Mouse Squaws on the cover and back. Beautiful art. She's the best. And then there's a handful, maybe 30, that are coming out on pink vinyl. And I think we're going to have just a very small, maybe 10 or a dozen with the pink vinyl with handmade covers. She does these really wild collage covers. And we'll probably have a handful of those, but they'll be gone by the time you air this podcast. So you missed it, but believe me, they were beautiful.
It's okay. I just like making collectors crazy.
Yeah, right? I know. What? Oh, yeah, they're amazing. So yeah, that's the deal on those. There's only, we only make like 300 or 400 of these. It's not like there's a ton of them going around. So it's a little competitive, but the digital world saves us all, so we can hear it at least.
And you mentioned the Bandcamp page. How else can people follow Gaswar online and get updates on future releases and maybe upcoming?
Either Rock as Hell or the Bandcamp. I mean, that's really on Gina's Facebook. We post stuff once in a while too.
Okay, cool.
But that's about it. We don't have our own website. Maybe we should, but we do have the Bandcamp. There's stuff on there.
Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I mean I'm glad for this opportunity. I really appreciate it, and I hope people check it out, and I hope they love it as much as they should.
Excellent. I have a funny story about cows.
Oh, good.
When I first, because I was only vaguely familiar with cows through the Melvins connection,
Hmm.
but obviously I knew AMREP, and so when I saw it with the AMREP logo, I figured it would be something I liked. And I was with one of my coworkers who was about my age at the time, so we were both in our early to mid 20s.
Hmm.
And he wasn't really, a big like underground guy. Like he listened to stuff like Stained or
Yeah,
Godsmack or whatever, whatever was popular at that time.
yeah.
And so I bought Orphan's Tragedy. He bought Sexy P Story. And the next time, I saw him at work, he was like, "That was the worst band I've ever heard." And I think I ended up,
He's not wrong.
and I think I ended up getting a Sexy P Story from him.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm glad we were able to talk and talk about the history of this stuff.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, yeah, me too. And hopefully your friend would hate this just as much.
We can only hope, right? Like half of the reason
Right, right.
half of the reason why we do this is to alienate the people we don't like.
Are you still in touch with him?
No,
Are
no,
you
no, no,
still
no.
in touch with him?
No, once I left that job,
Oh well, let's find him.
yeah.
Let's find him. Okay, well, thanks for everything. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Kevin. Take care.